Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. So, guys, Anthony Joshua says, enough talking, enough Twitter talk. I know I can beat Fury. Let's make this fight happen. Guys, I'm getting a little bit frustrated with all this dragging of the process, of this delaying this, making this fight. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's starting to get really irritating. Just make the fight, man, and announce it. Like, if the fight's gonna happen in June, announce the fight. We just want the fight on. To be honest, I'm getting sick and tired of just hearing back and forth and Eddie Hearn saying it's close. Like, literally, for the last 2 months, I've been hearing it's really close, really close, really close. I know it's a massive fight and it's a huge fight, but it's almost getting to the point where it's teasing the fans. Then, like, last week, obviously, Tyson Fury came out and said what he said. And the fans started to, well, like, oh, what's going on here? Fury saying that the fight may not happen. You know, us fans start to become a bit nervous that, oh, what's going on with this fight? Is it actually going to take place? Or is it a case where, they're struggling to come to terms? Then you hear John Fury's interview and they're saying, well, they've not signed their deal. We've signed our deal. And then Eddie Hearn saying, well, no, Tyson's not signed some of their deal. It's just getting to the point. Let's just make the fight, man, and get it signed and get it over the line. I hope they can make the fight and announce it, because when it is announced, it's gonna be huge. Here in the UK, that is a massive, massive sporting event. That is huge, right? And it's sad that it's not gonna happen in the UK. It's sad for the UK fans that that's not gonna take place in the UK. Most likely, it's not gonna take place, and that is sad. However, obviously, I don't begrudge the fighters making a lot of money. I think these two at the level they're at, I think in the second fight, I think they could take a little bit less, just to have the fight here in front of the UK fans. But I think a lot of the UK fans are not happy, because the UK fans want to see an undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, because the second fight won't be for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. The rematch probably will be for belts that some belts might have to be vacated. So then the second fight may not be for an undisputed fight. And the UK fans will feel gutted that they lost the undisputed fight to another country. That's not, and when there's two British fighters fighting, that they lost probably the biggest fight ever in British boxing history to another country between two Brits, for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. I don't think that'll ever happen again. I'd be very surprised if you get two British fighters, right, in 20, 30 years time, 40, 50 years time, potentially fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. It's very difficult to find two, like, last time Britain had it was Bruno and Lennox, when there was two good heavyweights, but you wouldn't... Was Bruno... I actually always felt where Bruno was always going to lose to Lennox Lewis. Whereas I think AJ has a better chance of beating Fury. Although he'll be going into the fight as an underdog, I think he has a better chance, a way better chance than what Bruno did of beating Lennox. I think AJ has a much better chance of beating Fury. So for me, it's a monster fight. It's a fight that needs to happen. I think it's definitely the biggest fight in British boxing history. But I don't think any other fight comes close, really. When you look at British boxing between two Brits, no way there's been a fight bigger than that. I think pay-per-view wise, I think from a commercial point of view, these two are going to blow the socks off of it. It should do well over 2 million I think it should do 2 million plus. Eddie Hearn said 4-5 million. Like that. That's just being being a bit ridiculous, because you're talking about what, 4-5 million. You're talking about potentially almost a tenth of the country buying the pay-per-view, almost a tenth of the whole of the UK buying it, which I don't think there's that many people in the UK that are into boxing. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of casuals that would buy that fight just because of the magnitude of it and the amount of promotion and how hyped that fight would be. I think you'll see a lot of people that are not really into boxing that will be watching that fight just because of the magnitude of the event, the way the fight will be hyped and promoted. This will be huge. This will be huge. I remember when Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson was hyped and promoted. That was the first fight that I went over to my cousins and watched, Lennox Lewis v Mike Tyson. Probably the first fight I ever watched. I wasn't really into boxing at that point. I was a very young kid, but that fight was hyped so much. I remember going over to my cousins to watch that fight between Tyson and Lewis. And Lennox ended up knocking Tyson out. I actually remember watching that fight. I believe 2002, 2003. I remember going over to my cousin's house and we were all watching it up in their room. Where I think my uncle and his friends were watching the fight downstairs while me and my cousins were watching the fight upstairs. And I remember that fight very well between Lewis and Tyson. I remember I was watching that fight. That was probably the first fight. And I was very young at that point. In 2003, how old would I have been? I would have been probably about 10, 11. Like, I probably would have been in primary school. Or just going into secondary school. Like, I wasn't very old at all. 10, 11. And I remember that was probably the first fight I ever saw between Tyson and Lewis. So I know the kind of... And imagine like me at 10, 11 years old, not really into boxing at all at that point, being drawn in to that fight. You can imagine how big that would have been to like grown adults at that time. Like some of you are my subscribers that were probably a lot older than I was at that point, right? That had a better sense of, sport and boxing at that point, could probably imagine the hype and how big that fight was. And now I'm a massive hardcore boxing fan. I've got my own YouTube channel talking about boxing. So you can imagine how big this is going to be. I know how big this event's going to be between Fury and Joshua. It's a monster fight. It's a monster fight that, should happen in the UK, but it's not going to happen in the UK. Just because I just don't think the finances in this country, I think I can't compete with some of the other countries. It's simple as that. And I don't think you can begrudge a fighter because, like Eddie Hearn was pointing out in an interview, that the differences in pay is massive. It's not like it's 5-10 million where they can say, all right, if it's only 5-10 million, you're talking about almost half. So when it's that much money, I don't begrudge. Now, the second fight, I think they should take a little less just because of the fact that I think they would have made that money and secured the bag. Like, these guys are already rich and secured the bag, but obviously this would be a monumental payday, which probably secured their lives, their grandkids' lives and their kids' lives. That's how much money they're going to make in this fight. But then the second fight, I think they owe it to the British fans by giving them a fight in their home patch, because I feel like the British fans deserve to see that fight in the UK as well. Because let's not forget, there's a lot of people that want to go to that fight. I was having a discussion with somebody the other day. I'm not one to really go to this event. I prefer watching it on TV anyway, so it doesn't bother me. But I just think it would be unfair on loyal British boxing fans that have been going to big boxing events for years, like been going to matchroom shows for years, right? And then the biggest fight comes along in British boxing history, and then that fight happens elsewhere. Because let's not forget, like, this fight is going to cost a bomb just to get a ticket, right? If you now have to go to another country and fly out to another country, that's like, there's a lot of people that ain't going to be able to afford that. So I think it's only fair. I do think that these two fighters will be respected a lot more if they have a fight in the UK. I do think some of the UK fight fans will definitely have a grudge if they don't fight that fight here in the UK. Now, I still think that there'll be a lot of UK fans not happy with the fact that the undisputed fight took place elsewhere. But I just think unfortunately there's nothing that can be done about that. That's gonna happen. I don't think we're gonna get an undisputed fight, but nevertheless, even if we get Fury and AJ in the UK, I think that should make us all happy. To be honest, because I think it's giving people an opportunity to watch that fight. I think if it's a case where they take that fight takes place in another country and they never have a fight here, I do think a lot of the British fans boxing fans will definitely hold a grudge against Fury and Joshua for not giving them that opportunity, you know, to go to one of the biggest fights in British boxing history. Because I think the second fight, depending on how the second fight may not have the same intrigue as the first one, because once we see the first one, the second fight might not be as big, especially if, like, just say Fury destroys him, or maybe if Joshua destroys, who knows, right? The second fight won't have that same intrigue because we would have already seen the fight play out, unless the fight's a controversial fight, where it's a fight that, you know, is a controversial decision, then the second fight will have an intrigue. But if the first fight is conclusive, then the second fight might not have that same kind of appeal anyway. That's why a lot of people want to see that they want that this first fight to happen in the UK, because, like I said, the second fight, the intrigue of the second fight might be killed depending on the result of the first fight. So personally, I can see why a lot of British fans will be peed off. But again, like I said, I just don't think anything can be done about this fight taking place elsewhere. I just think the money and the finances are too big. I know John Fury's saying that have the fight here. You know, it's embarrassing for the fight to be taking place elsewhere. I think that's just a case where, you know, he's trying to... I just think he's trying to say that we want the fight in the UK, this, that. But I just think that the two fighters, Joshua and Fury, at the end of the day, all fighters are money driven. They're not going to want to take a few quid less to have the fight in the UK, especially when you're talking about 30, 40 million. You know, nobody's going to want to let 30, 40 million go just to have the fight in front of the UK fans. You know, I just don't see them doing that. I know people may say, well, that if they make... What difference does it make if they make 80 million or make 40 million? You know, money makes you greedy. It's very difficult. It's like very difficult. Imagine if you were in a job, right? And someone was paying you 80 grand, right? But then 80 grand for a day's work. But then, you know, what difference does it make if you get 40 grand or 80 grand? You know, it's kind of like, it's very difficult. It's very difficult when you know you can make X amount of money, but if you were to fight in front of your home crowd, you'll get X amount of money. Like, if you're talking about 5, 10 million, fair enough, you can bear the grunt. These are millionaires. But when you're talking about 40 million, almost half, that's significant. That's life-changing sums of money. You know, we're not talking small bits of money here. That's life-changing sums of money. So you can't expect them just to avoid that and just ignore that. Ignore the 40, you know, it's just not going to happen. So we've got to, as fight fans, I feel like we've got to be realistic as well. That these are guys that are prize fighters that, you know, they fight for money, right? And no fighter is going to say, listen, I'll take half of what I could get in another country because I want to fight in front of my loyal fans. I just don't think... I don't think that's realistic. I don't think anybody in any kind of job would do that. It doesn't matter how rich you are. It's just, I just don't think it makes any sense. Think about it. If you give an offer to a fighter, listen, we'll give you 40 million to fight in front of your UK fans, but if the fight happens in Saudi Arabia, you'll get 80 million. What do you think any fighter would say? What do you think any fighter and his team would say? Remember, it's not just a fighter. A fighter's feeding a lot of other people. What do you think they're saying? What do you think his manager? What do you think his, you know, all the team that he has, his trainer, all of those guys, Eddie Hearn, what are they all saying? Because remember, they're getting a cut out of this. They're getting a cut out of his final purse. You know, they're getting a cut out of what he gets paid. So if he's getting 80 million, they're all getting a cut out of that. If he, the less he makes, the less cut they get. And they don't care where the fight really happens. They want to make money as well. So at the end of the day, everyone's got, you know, there's too many people advising him, benefiting from him making more money for them to say, let's take less. It's just not going to happen. Like, second time round, yes, because they were all made good money the first time round. So they'd be willing to take less the second time round, which is fair. But me looking at it, I just think it's only fair for both of them to go and secure the bag in Saudi Arabia and then come back and give the UK fans what they want. And then everyone's happy, really. But that's my take on it. Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.